So let's just get started. So I'm really happy to have everybody on today. Thank you for being here. I think you'll really like our guest today. She's very interesting. We met Taylor a few months ago for the first time, actually, at an NRCC and the RNC boot camp in DC. We thought she and her topic were so interesting. We asked her if she would join us today, and she graciously accepted. Taylor Black is the Chief Marketing Officer for the NRCC. As the CMO, Taylor oversees the direct mail, telemarketing, digital, and creative teams. This is Taylor's second cycle with the NRCC, and in 2021, she came to the board as the NRCC's Digital Fundraising Director, where she led the committee's online. Oh, who's on? Everybody put yourself on mute, please. Somebody's talking. She came to the NRCC as the Digital Fundraising Director, where she led the committee's online fundraising program. Prior to the NRCC, she worked for Targeted Victory, where she successfully launched digital fundraising programs for various House candidates, political committees, nonprofits, and grassroots organizations, including high-profile candidates in the NRCC's Young Gun program. Outside of digital, Taylor has served in the United States Navy and on Capitol Hill for Congressman Tom McClintock. Taylor is a native of Orange County, California, and a graduate of the University of Southern California. I'm going to turn it over to Taylor in just a minute. I think she has control. But then after she's done, we're going to open it up for some Q&A, because I think it would be very helpful for all of us to hear what she has to say. And then I'll come back on briefly and talk about Buzz 360 and the tools that we can help offer to help you. So Taylor, I am going to turn it over to you. I think you should be the host now.
Great, I have control. Thank you so much, Lisa, for that introduction. As she said, I am going to just go through the same kind of presentation I gave at the RNC NRCC Digital Bootcamp. So I oversee the fundraising for the NRCC, and we're going to go through prospecting to build a list. I think it's helpful to also kind of talk about the context of what that means. So the presentation will make a little bit more sense. Prospecting to build a list, we're talking specifically about a fundraising list. So we had some really great questions at the RNC bootcamp about creating lists and how, if you were to create a list of voters, of persuadables, of base voters, this is more geared towards fundraising, specifically donors. So some of the things that you may be familiar with building a list of potential volunteers may be slightly different. I will say volunteers are probably the closest, because those are going to be your most politically engaged and probably your most conservative if you're talking about Republican campaigns. So that's going to be similar. But when we're talking about, if you're on the data side and you're talking about building a list for Get Out the Vote, this is going to be a little bit different, because those folks who you are trying to get to vote for your candidate may not donate, but the people that you're getting to donate are probably definitely going to vote. They're going to be primary voters, and they're going to be hyper engaged voters. So just, I think it's helpful to kind of make that distinction before we do these slides, because I found that sometimes that people ask questions that more pertain to kind of creating a list for independent voters. This is just a little bit different. So specifically talking about finding folks who are going to donate online to campaigns in small amounts. So we're talking in the $5 to really sometimes $5 to $1,000 range, depending on where you get them from. And so they can be super valuable. So I'm going to go through how we kind of look at prospecting. How do you go out? How do you find these online donors? Where do you start in terms of everything from in-person events to online ads? How do you build a small dollar fundraising list for your campaign? So I'm going to share my presentation. Hopefully I'm going to do this right. So give me 1 second. Okay. Am I in present mode, or can everyone see this?
And we can see it great.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay. Perfect. So we're going to go through how to build an online fundraising list. The first is, so when we talk about list, we use the term house file. So a house file is your collection of email addresses and phone numbers that can be used for campaign outreach, online fundraising, and digital advertising, and is owned by your campaign. So how do you go and how do you build this list of online donors? So when I say house file, that's what we're talking about. We're talking a list owned by your campaign. And then we're going to go through each of these points. We call it the ABCDs of online fundraising. Always be collecting data, always be building your list of online donors so that you can raise as much money as possible. We're going to kind of go through the low-hanging fruit, the easiest folks to collect for your list. The first being friends and family. This is what most folks will tell campaigns, whether you're going through major donor or even small dollar. So anything from your neighbors to your church group. Some folks will be willing to give $1,000. Some will want to do something smaller. And those people shouldn't be discounted. Those are people who might want to buy a merchandise item for $20. Those are still really valuable, and enough of those you'll be able to get more of those at scale. So you may only get, tens of, $5,000 donors, but you're probably going to know at least a couple hundred, even if it's going through your Facebook friend list. And sending a message asking someone to pitch in $10 for your campaign. It's easiest to start with your friends and family list. So this is everything going through that list, all of your contacts, your address book, relatives, church members, neighbors, friends, folks that you work with. Think about how many people asked you to buy cookies for your daughter's Girl Scout cookie drive. Like, those are the same folks that you should turn around and ask to see if they'll give $20 to your political campaign if you're running. Colleagues, schoolmates, social media connections. This goes back to go through your Facebook friend list. That's the easiest place to start. Invite them to visit your website, to sign up for email updates so they can figure out how your campaign is going, so that they can potentially donate. Hobby groups, volunteer groups. This is a great place to start. And I think there's a lot more scale in these groups for your small dollar donors than you're going to get on the major donor side. And then rev shares and list rentals. So this is going to go a little more into the depth of how do you find donors out there who maybe have given to campaigns in the past, but aren't familiar with your campaign.
No.
Do you have a question?
Since I'm not in control anymore, I can't mute everybody. Would you everybody please mute themselves?
Sorry about that.
All right. If there are questions, please feel free to speak up. I know we're going to go through these slides kind of fast. I know there's Q&A at the end, but I'm also happy to do this during, because I think there are going to be some great conversations about how we kind of utilize these tactics. So list rentals and rev shares. So this is what we recommend for campaigns who are looking to scale, potentially if you have a statewide campaign or even some really high scale house campaigns, to scale your online fundraising program really quickly and nationally. So we've seen a lot of house campaigns actually go outside of their districts with online fundraising. They'll go statewide and they'll even go nationally. So we have a lot of great candidates who have great stories that resonate, that they may be young Kim running in California, but they resonate and her story resonates with donors in Texas, New York, Florida. So a lot of campaigns that come to us say, how do I expand my circle online from the people that maybe were on my friends and family list, or I've run a couple of Facebook ads? Where do I go out and I go find folks who have given to other Republican candidates like me online? So the way that we recommend doing this, and this is something that's usually done in conjunction with a online digital vendor, is through list rentals and rev shares. So these are two separate tactics if you look at kind of email prospecting. And this is basically going out to folks who already have a list of online digital donors and basically prospecting to that list in two different strategies. List rentals is
looking at the craft in a bill.
Senator Fran, can you
All right,
mute?
I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Mike.
Can you mute yourself, Senator?
So a list rental is a way that you can go to someone who already has a preset list. A lot of times this will be campaigns that have maybe lost, but they've built a huge network and a huge list of online donors. What folks will do is they'll rent that list out to either like a state party or like a like-minded candidate. And these lists are on the market. So there's two ways that you can send to that list, a list share and a rev share, or a list rental and a rev share. A list rental is typically going to be a flat set cost. So you can have a list of, say, it's 100,000 emails. Your campaign, Taylor Black for Congress, wants to send to this list of 100,000 emails to see if there's anyone who would want to donate to my campaign. That could be a flat cost, $10,000. And no matter what the return is, and no matter how much that send raises, your cost is going to be $10,000. So you could send to that list and raise $20,000, and you will have doubled the money that you spent on it, and you actually make money back. Your send could also raise $100, and now you have lost $9,900 on that send. So there's more risk involved because it is a flat cost and you're not guaranteed a return. Whereas if we look at rev shares, similarly, you can send to that list, but you can share risk with the list owner. So you can set up a predetermined split on the send. That's between you and the list owner to kind of negotiate. And you're looking at less of a loss on these. You could send to that same list and it's break even. Whatever it raises, whatever you spend, or we'll say for number's sake, it's a 50-50 split. So whatever that list raises, you get 50% of the revenue. So instead of spending $10,000, if you send to it, only raises $5,000. Because it's a 50-50 split, you're only spending $2,500. So there's a lot less risk involved in rev shares. But again, with risk comes reward. You're guaranteed that split no matter what. You're only going to raise 50%. Of whatever it raises, versus a list rental, you could get a great deal, but there's a lot more risk involved. We've seen campaigns do a good mix of these, both list rentals and rev shares, especially if you know where the data is coming on your list rental. If you know it's a good list, maybe you even sent to it before, and you know that you have great copy. A lot of times we'll do that with really best performing copy. So as the committee, we'll take copy that's done really well on our house file sends, and to go out and to prospect to find new donors on these lists, we'll use our best performing content. We know we have something signed by someone great that's performing really well. We'll take a little bit more risk. But if you're working with a digital vendor, we encourage everyone to do rev shares. So you're not guaranteed to take a giant loss. There's a lot less risk involved. The one caveat I will say, because we've seen people get in hot water for it, not so much hot water, but it can get very expensive, is buying lists. That is something very common that we have seen in the space of campaigns being approached saying, I have a list, I am willing to sell it to you for X amount, with no guarantee of how the quality of that list. Where did the emails come from? Are the emails known donors? If that's something that your campaign is interested in doing and buying a list, I would really dig into where that list came from, who owns it, how well do you know that person? You shouldn't be buying it from a company that you don't know. You should just be very cautious about how you go about that if you're buying lists and you're buying data. That is my one caveat to using, is to going to external lists. So, that is one of the ways, list rentals and rev shares. This is how, again, in conjunction with typically with a digital vendor, they'll be better at negotiating the rev shares, making sure you're getting an adequate split to make sure you're not losing money. And that if you are doing list rentals at a flat cost, there's a guarantee on the quality of the data that you're sending to. Are there any questions on that before I move on? Okay. Going into online ads. So the biggest ones that we see for our political campaigns are the ones that you are normally going to see that you would use yourself. Facebook, Google search, and YouTube. Facebook is going to be usually everyone's number one go-to because the scale is there. There are so many online users on Facebook versus anywhere else that it's going to be the easiest place to get a lot of leads for really inexpensive. So when we're talking about running online ads to collect emails, Facebook is going to come somewhere between really 50 cents to $3 to $5, somewhere in that range. I wouldn't spend more than $5 at most on a Facebook ad unless you know you're getting a known donor. And those are kind of two different kinds of ad sets that you're going to run. Is it a fundraising ad where they have to give money, so you're guaranteed to know that this person gives $5, or are you just asking them to sign a petition, and you don't really know if they're interested in giving money after the fact? So when you're kind of taking these two different strategies, that's how you kind of game out how much you're willing to spend on a lead. For us, we know that an average donor will give around, say, $20, and they'll typically donate 3 to 4 times per cycle. So at $100 value, I'm willing to spend $10 to $20, or whatever that is, what kind of the metric is that you decide on, to look at kind of the long-term value of what you're getting. So that's something to keep in mind when you're running online ads. People can get caught up really in, we were able to get 20-cent leads on this platform. It's really important to think, all right, well, it only cost me 20 cents per lead, or per email to collect, but what is the long-term value? Do they ever give again? Are the people on these platforms giving quality emails, or are they kind of giving junk emails? I don't know about you, but I've got a couple different email addresses that I send all of my junk. Anytime I want to go to a website and I want my 10% off that I get when that pop-up window, it's whatever that email is. So just keep in mind that when you're getting emails, if there's no donation tied to it, if there's no receipt, that they're waiting to get their credit card receipt from, the odds are you're going to get a lot of emails that are just trash or things that people haven't opened in a really long time. So just keep that in mind. So you're going to see a lot of that on Facebook. Google search, I will say, if you have a campaign and you are not running Google search, you really should be running Google search on your own name. You also should be checking that your opponent is not running Google search on your name as well for fundraising. That's a common tactic that we see. We always recommend campaigns get up on Google search, because the quality and the quantity of donations you get from Google search are going to be much higher. So your cost acquisition is going to be higher. You're probably in somewhere between the $20 to $50 range to acquire a donor on Google search, but you're talking about people who are probably going to give $1,000 to $5,000. Because if you're thinking about folks who are specifically searching Taylor Black for Congress, donate, they're going to be high quality donors versus someone that I am running an ad that I want them to sign a petition to build the wall. You don't know if they're going to want to give after the fact, but the folks that you're going to get that are searching your name, or your candidate's name with donate on it, are most likely to give usually a lot more than $20. It's somewhere between the $500 to $5,000 range. And then I also recommend YouTube. We found that YouTube and Google Leads specifically are one of the higher quality leads when we're running online ads. This one can just get tricky because a lot of times you're looking with video content, and that can be a lot of time. There's a lot more labor that goes into creating video ads and getting your candidate to film a direct-to-camera video. A lot of principals don't like filming selfie videos of themselves, and that's typically what YouTube videos are geared towards. So while the quality of the leads and the donors are higher, it's just a tougher one to get, just because the content can be a little harder to put together. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple just definitions, because I've thrown a few of these out, but I think it's helpful to go through them when we're talking about kind of ads and prospecting. When we're talking about leads, we're specifically talking about an email or a phone number acquired from an audience. It's also important to note, as I talked about with Facebook, is not all leads are donors. So not everyone who gives you an email address is guaranteed to be a donor. So it goes back to, if you're getting 50-cent leads, that's a great price, but making sure you know if they convert to donors down the line, once you start sending to them regularly through your email and your text house file, will really dictate whether or not that 50 cents was a good deal or not. Conversion, when an individual within an audience follows through and signs up or donates. So when we talk about conversion rate, what is the conversion rate on a page? What's the conversion rate on an ad? That really goes down to, were they able to actually, you brought them to a page, the creative was great, you got them to a page, but were you able to get them to convert to either give you their email address or give you their email address and a donation? And then cost per lead. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking through ads and prospecting. What does it cost you to acquire a new lead? So it's great to say that you got 1,000 leads, but how much did it cost you? Did you lose money on acquiring those leads? Did you make money on those leads. That's kind of the golden rule for online fundraising. If you're making money on donor acquisition, you should throw gasoline on the fire. If I'm running Facebook ads and they're not only paying for themselves, but I'm also bringing in more money on top of it, if I'm getting a 100% return, you should be going at that full throttle as much as possible. Oh, and I'm realizing now I see questions in the chat. I'm going to go over these specifically. Sorry. So we'll go back on this. Eric asked to be specific on how to use Google search. So this is something that you can do through the Google search self-service platform to run Google search ads. And this is also something that I would do in conjunction if you have a digital vendor specifically, but this is running, and this is a kind of a bid process that is done through Google and placing bids on acquisition for Google to run search ads on your name. So if you go through the Google search platform, they can help you set up keyword, how to set up. We'll go through at the end too as well on the Google actually has a platform similar to the Facebook transparency page where you can see Google search what's being run on your name, your candidate's name, and your opponent, so that you can see in real time what is being run on Google search. Senator Mark Warren asks if we've found Google search bias, if it impacts Republicans. If so, what have we done? And have we been able to verify bias? So this is something that actually came up for us last cycle with Google, specifically email. And the RNC, I think, actually issued I don't know if it was a lawsuit, but it is something that it got, basically Google had to do a pilot program because it was found there was a study done out of, I think it was North Carolina University, that there was significant bias found in inboxing with Gmail. So it is something that we've seen in the past. In terms of circumventing bias, we really choose with our dollars where we participate in terms of where we see bias. So if there is bias and we really think it exists, that's just platforms that we may do work with, but we're going to limit our budget there because it comes down to cost. Are not seeing the returns that we want, we're not going to spend money places that we are not getting the results that we want. It is really hard to verify. A lot of these algorithms change in real time very quickly, and customers are never consulted, whether it's us or a corporate entity. There really aren't a ton of notifications that we get on when the algorithms change. Facebook is constantly changing theirs as well. Okay, I'm gonna jump back to the metric glosser really quick, and we're gonna, I think, wait for questions at the end. Cost per new donor, we kind of went through that. What are you spending and how many new donors are you getting comes out to what's your cost per new donor, and then return on ad spend. So if you spend $1,000 and spent $500, your net income is $500. You're looking at 100% return. So these are some of the metrics that we use to kind of gauge whether or not our ads are working, whether we're getting a good value, and what we're seeing that's been doing well. More ways to collect data. So this is the easiest one and the cheapest way to do this is organic social media, especially with campaigns that have a large organic following. We encourage those campaigns to be posting, asking people to sign a petition, asking people to sign up for email updates, doing that to get those forms in front of as many eyeballs as possible, especially people that you know are following your campaign and they want to keep in touch. If they're following you on Twitter, the odds are they'll probably want to see your emails and they want to interact with your campaign in multiple ways. So encouraging, if you've got, and this is a couple of good examples from some of our house campaigns. So if you have a poll that's working on email, it's really easy. And if you're using WinRed, specifically, you can make sure that those links that you're using work on Facebook, on Twitter, so that those people can sign up for all of your emails as well. And again, this is really easy, low-hanging fruit, cheap, and frankly free. It's a WinRed account is free to set up, so you can get those links to sign up people, and you can just post them to your organic socials. I will say ideas. People love signing birthday cards. People love signing holiday cards. So if you have a candidate around the holiday time, people love even Valentine's Day cards. February coming up, ask someone to sign a Valentine's Day card for their member of Congress. That's a great way to engage people, get people to sign up who want to be hearing from your campaign. And then the next biggest one is sending people to your website. So the rules are pretty simple. Making sure that your sign up form is prominent on your website. If you go to TaylorBlackForCongress.com, the first thing you should see is a sign up form so that people can sign up to get updates. Integrating your email signups into your house file. So making sure that it's great that people are signing up for your email, but let's also make sure that once they sign up, they get a welcome email. Hey, thanks for signing up. I really appreciate that you're interested in the campaign. Here's where you can follow me on all social media. I look forward to talking to you soon. And then a few days later, they get another email saying, hey, I'm really glad to have you on the team. Would you mind chipping in $5? This race is really important and I could use all the help we could get. So making sure you're consistent and the people that you're bringing in through the website are hearing from you within days. A lot of these websites also, whether you're doing it through Nation Builder or whoever you're building your website through, can often set up automated messages so that the second you sign up for your email, or for the list, they get an email welcoming you. Same thing, this is a big one. If you are doing texting, and email is pretty simple to set up. Any campaign can set up like a MailChimp or Constant Contact or even an iterable account, which is a little more tech heavy. Texting is a lot harder. There's a lot of great services that are coming up, whether it's like a Rumble up or you're using like Open Sesame to be able to do texting. But it's not as plug and play as email has been. And that being said, there's a lot of like litigation around it with TCPA. So you should make sure that if you are collecting phone numbers as well, you have opt-in language. So you can kind of see it here on this sign up form. These are the things you should be collecting at minimum: a name, an email address, a phone number if you're doing texting, as well as zip code. If you get to the phase that you want to maybe send an email out asking if volunteers are interested in coming and doing some door knocking, or you want to do something geo-targeted. For us, we do a lot of national work. Most of the emails we send are to a national audience, but we can also be helpful to some of our campaigns with list swaps and list exchanges. And a lot of those folks are going to want certain state selects. So it's important to do zip code so that you can get down to that level, but at bare minimum, you should be asking for an email address. And if you're interested in texting, definitely want your opt-in language. So this opt-in language is what allows campaigns to send in compliance with TCPA, which is the Telecom Consumer Protection Act, to make sure that you're not getting into any kind of trouble with automated texting. So super important to have that. Get one from your counsel, whoever's working on your campaign. If you are collecting phone numbers, you're going to want to be really cautious about how you're opting folks in. And the next one, this is the other thing that we recommend for a lot of campaigns, is working with others, working within your delegation. For a lot of our House candidates, not just even working with people in your state delegation, but also someone who has a similar story to you. So we have a lot of Navy SEALs in Congress, and a lot of them love to help each other, work together, and fundraise for fellow SEALs. And that's a great way, whether it's everyone in Florida or everyone is a Navy SEAL. It's a great way to kind of help each other find donors and push donors to each other through really what it is conduiting. So this is something specifically that is used through WinRed as a platform through conduiting. It allows campaigns to work with one another, split data and donations. So using surrogates, other members, candidates, leadership, and public figures to sign fundraising emails, you can work to split conduits. So the way that this works is, I'll use this example here. Elise Stefanik, Fundraising for Mike Garcia. She sent out an email to her list encouraging people to donate to help Mike Garcia. They were taken to a donation page where a percentage, it was a 50-50 split, where if you gave $10, 5 of it went to Mike Garcia, 5 of it went to Elise Stefanik. So this is a great way to help kind of spread the data so that if you want to be helping other campaigns and vice versa, what we've seen is a lot of campaigns will send to another candidate's list, and that candidate will send to your list, and it's a great swap to kind of help each other find more donors in the space. So this is also something that specifically that you can do through WinRed through their conduit feature. And that's how you can help kind of grow your list. And the last one is really the easiest one is in-person campaign events. So doing a mandatory sign-up sheet. The big one we've seen folks do lately, which has been great, is a QR code. So a lot of times on whether it's a fundraiser or some kind of get out the vote event, of putting a QR code around the event, whether it's on like a little placard somewhere where people can scan it, and it'll take you to a page where you can sign up, give an email, or even donate if you're at the event. So you've done all of this, you've collected your data, whether you did rev shares or Google and Facebook ads, you collected this list. Now, how do you find them? How do you bring them in, and how do you send them to your house file? So you've collected these email addresses. We recommend doing a welcome series. So this is a series of emails to kind of, this helps actually kind of parse out those fake emails. Again, like I said, everyone's got that seed email that you give to a website so that you can get your 10% off and then you never look at it again. How do you filter those out? So we do that a lot of times through a welcome series. So we'll do a series of typically 3 emails. First one being a blanket intro email. You don't ask for a donation, you just introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Taylor Black. I'm running for Congress. I would love for you to follow me on Facebook. You can go here to follow me. Thanks for being a part of the team. There's no ask. But the data that you get from that is opens. So maybe only 10% of people open that email. That's still usable data because now you know that you have 10% of that list that actively opens emails. You know there's a real person behind it. And then going forward, you can keep sending to that 10%. So then you send to it again, that same list. Usually goes intro email, soft ask, hard ask. So soft ask and hard ask is when we're talking. Soft ask are petitions, volunteer forms, asking for information, you're engaging them, maybe you're doing a poll. What are your biggest priorities for 2024? Are you planning to vote Republican in 2024? These are all questions that you can ask to get people engaged, that they interact with your campaign, but you're not directly asking them for a donation. And then they go to a hard ask. Hard ask is a direct ask, a direct email that says, hey, I need $5. This race is tight. The polls are showing that I'm down by 2 points. Like, can I get you to give $5 to help get me ahead? So we do a welcome series. So typically in that order, an intro email, a soft ask, a hard ask, and that really parses out the list so that you kind of filter out the bad emails, the folks who maybe just gave a fake email address or they gave you an email address for something that they don't open very often, so that you can parse down the people that are actively engaged. Then you bring those into your house file. Those are the people that you send to. Most campaigns will typically send emails to their list 3 to 5 times a week. Sometimes more, depending on the list, depending on how much data you have. Our list is pretty big, so we segment out by how active people are, by their interests, by maybe what they've given before. If you've already maxed out, we'll leave you alone. So you can kind of parse out that data, but typically most campaigns, at least on the House side, we see 3 to 5 emails a week. So once you kind of have those people go through your welcome series, you're consistently sending to them 3 to 5 times a week, and eventually you convert them and you turn them into a donor. That's how you take your prospecting, feed it into your house file, how you get them to become donors. The last one I'll before we get to questions is one of the big questions we get for folks is how do you find content that is inspiring, that gets people who've maybe never heard of your campaign to give. We really want people, we tell our campaigns, hone in on the story, hone in on what sets you apart. We have a record number of females and minorities and veterans. Again, we have a ton of Navy SEALs who love running for Congress. What is it about your story that would appeal to a national audience outside of your own district? And then also, what are other people doing? So the best resources for seeing kind of what content in the space looks like. Email, we recommend Throttle HQ. It's kind of like a service where you can go through and see, kind of collects emails around the political space, so you can see what emails are being sent. I also recommend to people to take an email address, totally separate from your personal one, because it's gonna, your inbox is gonna be crazy if you use your regular personal email, but get a seed email and sign up for lists. Go to every campaign you can think of, from presidentials down to a state house race. Even a mayoral race can sometimes have some really great content, so you can see what people are doing, what people are talking about. I always tell my team, if you see a ton of people sending on the same topic a lot, it's probably because it's working. So just keep an eye on what's in the space, and you can do this. Every morning I sign in and I check my seed email and I say, all right, what did everyone send today? What is the NRSC sending? What are the presidential sending? And just take a look at what's going on in the space, because it'll be really easy once you do that to kind of see trends of what content people are saying. And that will also be helpful when you're trying to figure out formatting. What does an email look like? How big are the graphics? What kind of language is in a footer? Maybe what kind of disclaimer are on these emails? And that's a great way to just kind of see and get ideas of what's going on in the space. In the ads, Facebook Ad Archive, and Google Transparency Report. So the question that someone had on Google search and how to do Google search, I really recommend going to the Google Transparency Report. That's where you can see what those Google ads look like, what the phrasing, what the keywords look like. You can really dive into what people are doing. Facebook Ad Archive, when this first came out, people were a little cautious about it, really didn't know. It actually turned out to be a great tool. You can see every ad that has ever been placed on Facebook, the demos, as well as the amount spent. So if you want to know how much your opponent is spending on Facebook ads, that's something that you can see in the Facebook Ad Archive. It's also where you can get great content ideas. Again, same as kind of Throttle in your email, is go see what presidential campaigns are doing on the left and the right. There's a lot to be, we can learn a lot from what everyone in the space is doing. So those are great resources if you are looking for something specific and you kind of want to know what people are talking about. Maybe you're in a very specific House or a state Senate race in a state where you don't want to talk about national issues and you want to keep it super local. That's great. A lot of these hyper local campaigns will be running these same ads, so you can look there. So it's a great place to look for ideas. Okay, that's all I really have. My email address is right there. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to kind of do follow-ups and talk about prospecting specifically in the fundraising space. So I'm gonna stop sharing and I think open it up to questions.
Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat here. Some good ones, actually. So is Facebook Ad Archive free?
Yes, it is free. It is totally free. It's a free service put out by Facebook. It's something that they started after 2016. So they also show all corporate ads as well. So everything from McDonald's to Mike Johnson for Congress, any kind of ad that has been run on Facebook is in the Facebook Ad Transparency Report. So you can see it all there for free, and they've gotten a lot more granular, added a lot more detail on demos, spend, geo, everything you want to know about a Facebook ad will be in there, and it is totally free. Same thing with Google. I think Throttle HQ, I think, is a paid service, if I believe, but which is why I go the free route, the cheap and easy way. I just I have a separate email and I go and I sign up for everyone's list that I can get on, and I do it that way.
Cool. Somebody asked, does Rumble provide the same service as an alternative to YouTube? You talked about YouTube ads.
Yeah, so Rumble also, you can run ads as well. They're a newer platform, so I don't know if their self-service is set up in the same way. I think it is still, I don't think it's as robust because it's a bit of a smaller platform. YouTube and Rumble, I will say, a lot of the conservative platforms, whether it's like a True Social or a Rumble, it's just important to keep in mind that those are already kind of right-leaning and right-thinking users. So those are great places to go to look for donors because you're probably going to get more conservatives on those in general. But if you're talking kind of like in the GOTV aspect and you want to do some hyper targeting for independents, Google is probably where you want to be. But yes, Rumble is a great alternative to YouTube, and you can run similar ads there as well if that's something that you're interested in.
Okay, cool. Tasha asked a question, do these recommendations relate to Swipe Red? I'll talk about Swipe Red at the end, because as everybody knows, that's our baby. So I can talk about that after we get done with these other questions. If somebody wants to just open up and ask her questions, I think she'd be okay with that. Senator Mark Rand asked, what are the alternatives to Google bias has been proven? I'm going to open up after this.
Yeah, so the bias on Google is, so there is a report. It came out of it's either NC State or University of North Carolina. I can't remember, but it was out of North Carolina. They basically did a test that showed that inboxing, they set up 2 separate inboxes, one with Outlook, one with Yahoo, and one with Gmail, and they found that conservative emails were not delivering to Gmail at the same rate as other email providers. Google will tell you, and this is something that we have talked to them extensively about, is that it is all user-based. So if you are not opening the emails, that they are not going to deliver. There's a lot of conversation too about political emails being political speech, which shouldn't be censored, but we go back and forth with them on this all of the time. So there is proof there, but we work with them intimately. I mean, the thing is most folks have a Gmail account. And a lot of donors have Gmail accounts. So it is just about working with the algorithm. It is not something that you can discount. It's not something that we would say, well, we don't like what Google's doing, so we're just not going to send to Gmails. That's just not where the political space is. So while we're working with them and we are having ongoing conversations about kind of what we need to do to make sure that we're inboxing to our donors and we're getting the emails that our folks want into their inboxes and not into their spam. It is something that we work on every single day, and there is a good amount of there is a good amount of email deliverability services that you can use that can monitor how you're inboxing and kind of keeping an eye on that for you, so you can see where you're getting the best deliverability, whether it's Outlook or Yahoo or Gmail, between all of them.
Klaus tried to turn his microphone on and we got a lot of feedback, but he does have a question. And I think it's a good one. Can you set expectations on the revenue coming from online sources, if possible, for a state race?
Yeah. So what I would recommend is that every race is different and every race has a different ability to scale. What you should be doing before you really get into the digital space is putting together a budget. And part of that budget should include, what are you planning to spend on online advertising? How many leads do you expect to get at a certain cost? And how much revenue do you expect them to bring in? So you absolutely can set expectations for revenue within, you have to be obviously like realistic about it. But having a budget that sets out how much you're expecting to spend, how much income you're expecting to bring in. And we always tell our campaigns, by the end of the cycle, you should be net positive. We don't want campaigns losing money on digital, but then also constantly updating those budgets and those projections. Typically, like at the committee, we do them every quarter. So we'll take a look and say, all right, where were we getting a better value? I was getting, really cheap leads on Facebook, but they weren't really panning out. And I was getting more expensive leads on email, but I ended up getting more donors out of that in the long run. So we're constantly changing our budget around, but I think that you can set expectations. What I caution folks not to do is to say, I'm going to raise $50,000 in online ads and I'm going to spend it until I raise it. And then also not being flexible enough to know if you're getting returns somewhere else, it's okay to move budget around. But I think that you can set expectations for revenue if you are also setting expectations for cost. We've had state races that have done it as well. They're just at a smaller scale, and you just need to keep constantly updating your projections based on your returns.
Sue asked a question, is there any advice in, I've tried running ads on Facebook over a year and keep blocking us from sending. We never get approved, even jumping through the hoops.
Interesting. There's a lot of different reasons that could be. It seems like every couple months Facebook adds a new disclaimer that you have to have set up. I know that you have to be verified as a US citizen, so you have to send in paperwork so that they're making sure, like, there's a lot of different rules about how you can run ads and who can run them and the kind of paperwork needed to do that. I'm trying to remember the email address, but there are folks at Facebook who specifically work directly with campaigns to get your disclaimer set up, and they'll tell you why you're not getting set up. So if you want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to put you in touch with with our contact over at Facebook, and they should be able to tell you exactly why you're not getting run or why your Facebook's ads are getting denied. But
Oh,
typically
cool.
it's because like proper disclaimers aren't getting set up. That's in the most part 90% of why our campaigns are having a hard time on Facebook. It's because there's literally a piece of paper that they haven't submitted to Facebook to verify something about their campaign.
Yeah, sometimes just following through that process can be a little difficult, but we can help as well. I got a couple of more questions here. Let's see. Somebody said, how do you ask when in person for a donation? Do you have any template examples?
For an in-person donation?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Uh, that one's tough. That one's more of a major donor thing. I could tell you how to write a fundraising email. The in-person one, I would say, is not much different. I think I don't have a template for that.
Okay, cool. And let's see. Stan asked, do we have a list of digital vendors that list rental or rev share? Where do we get these lists? That's a good question, Stan.
Yeah. So the list typically will come through a digital vendor. So there's a few digital vendors in this space that broker, because you have list brokers who manage lists, and then you have list vendors who will do kind of your one-stop shop for everything. They'll help you send emails, they'll help you send texts, they'll help you run Facebook ads and do all of it. I recommend going through an email vendor when you are trying to do list shares and list rentals with these list brokers, because it can get to be a lot very quickly. So I'm happy to make recommendations depending on kind of what campaign you have, to recommend digital vendors to put you in touch with someone. If you're looking to do list vendors, because we go through a digital vendor to get lists, and they manage a bunch of lists for us. So if you want to shoot me an email, if you're looking to get into the digital space and do some list rentals, I can make some recommendations.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. And in fact, if somebody wants to, everybody has my email address or my phone number, you can send it over to me and I'll forward it on to Taylor as well if you didn't copy her email down. Okay, let's see. Do we have, post your email address again.
That'll let me do it.
There you go. Okay, then somebody says, Tessa again, Tasha, does Taylor provide other training opportunities on how we can ask for money? That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. I don't, but I will say WinRed hosts a series of webinars, and they also have a lot of really great blog posts on online fundraising specifically, as well as Eric Wilson has a really great podcast. I think it's called The Business of Politics, and he typically has a lot of really great online fundraisers who.
And if you don't have Eric's, he was one of our guests a few months ago. So if you don't have his contact information, just send me a text or an email and I can forward that. We are part of the Startup Caucus that Eric is the executive director for. So I'm happy to do that. I think we're going to have to cut off here because I do want to take just a couple of minutes and talk about Buzz 360. I can't tell you enough how much we enjoyed this, hearing it the second time. Taylor, it's been very, very good. Thank you for jumping on with us today. I really admire all the work you do. It's very, very impressive. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly share my screen, and we're going to talk briefly about Buzz 360. Can everybody see my screen? Good. So just a little bit about Buzz 360. If you don't know, we are headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're currently selling in about 17 states. And we work with campaigns from presidential, which we're super excited about. We're knee deep in the Iowa caucus for the Never Back Down DeSantis team. So that's pretty exciting. But US Congress, governors, attorney general, secretary of states, all the way down party units, and school board races. Our platform, we have really two products. They're all integrated, but we can sell them separately. One is the online digital platform, and that's websites, landing pages, the CRM portion of the product, email marketing, the new ballot chase features that we tested out, not tested, but the first one we sent out was in Virginia and Colorado in 2023, which we were very excited of the results there. Call to action forms, and this Taylor spoke about this, having forms on your website. So that's really critical. Broadcast text messaging events, and we do have an integration into WinRed. You heard Taylor talk about WinRed many times throughout the half hour she spoke. We do have a webhook, so when somebody donates on your WinRed page, it automatically comes into our system. We are an approved vendor with the RNC. We have a award-winning Swipe Red, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a minute. So these are all the tools that you heard Taylor talking about it. These are some of the tools that we provide in our platform. Email, text messages, websites, all those things, as well as Swipe Red. Because we're an approved vendor with the RNC, when you work with us and you're eligible to receive that data, we have all the information that the RNC provides, and you can really be pretty targeted in your emails. And, right here, when we're talking about always vote Republican, that's a really sweet spot to ask for donations. The Swipe Red is a relational organizing app. We're building it so much, I'm starting to think we should call it a volunteer app, because the Never Back Down team is really a great resource for us to even improve our product. So that has friend-to-friend messaging, peer-to-peer, affinity outreach, which is really quite new, and it's really exciting. Social media sharing, events, neighborhood canvassing, neighborhoods. I mean, talk about asking, a greenfield, ask your neighbors if they can donate to your campaign or your organization. There's a gamification. We have public and private teams now. And again, that is back-to-back award-winning best in field application, both on the right and the left. And Swipe Red is all about building the strategy around volunteers and people in your organization, people to network to their personal friends and their personal networks, to have authentic conversations about your cause or your campaign. And, Taylor started out like this, and I thought it was really interesting. I smiled to myself, because who are the first people to donate? Friends and family, your colleagues, I forgot an EM people, the community, the people in your community. These are the very first people you should reach out to. And Swipe Red, that's its whole purpose, is to have friends talking to friends, friends talking to family about you and your campaign or your cause. We're starting an interesting project for those people that are on from Minnesota. We're starting an interesting project with the Minnesota GOP this week, starting Thursday. So that's just a little bit about us. I'm going to put my contact information. If you don't have it, you should by now. But I am, again, Lisa Schneegans. There's my cell phone number. Text me or call me, and that is my email address. Our next, as you know, we've been trying to establish a pattern of once a week having people come in, and once a month. And we just scheduled our next one for February, and I think it's going to be February 13th, but we're confirming the date. But that will be a great messaging. I saw the presentation yesterday, And it's a great messaging called Go for the Heart. That will be Lonnie Leitner from American Majority. He's going to be presenting, and we're just confirming the time. So watch for that. We will be sending out a recording for everybody that signed up for this webinar today. Feel free to reach out to me, and Taylor was generous and gave you her email address. If you have any questions, email or text any one of us. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you coming on today. Any other questions before we pop up? I see there's a couple more people came and said something in the chat.
Yeah, do you want us to ask a question here on the microphone, or we want to read
You
from
sure
chat?
can. You sure can.
Yeah, Joe McDonald from Minnesota here. This is my 14th year in office, and I'm in a red district. I know a lot of my district neighbors and friends and families, and going back to them every 2 years and asking for money is quite it's unfortunate, and it's not fun by any means. And getting emails of politicians asking for money from my end as well is annoying. What percentage of people just are, if you have that information, are just ignoring or unsubscribing or saying, Joe's asking for money again. Didn't I just give it to him? I mean, when you're in a smaller district, a house district, that you have that a challenge. So what's your thoughts on that?
Taylor, if you are still on, if you want
Yeah.
to answer that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I would say I don't think anyone has like an exact percentage on that. We have always looked at it as, if people don't want to get our emails, we don't want to send them. We don't want to be clouding up people's inboxes where they're not wanted. So we honor unsubscribes. As soon as you opt out from our house email, we will opt you out immediately. It's harder in the rental space because we can't give a list of, hey, here's everyone who has complained that they don't want an email. It's just not possible, and it's not good practice to say, hello, email vendor, here's a list of 100,000 donors that I know that I want to give. It's just basically giving away free data to people. So that's like a practice that we don't typically do. And there's also a lot of like PII issues with that as well. But if you opt out of an email, like, we encourage people to honor that. We also tell our campaigns, like, give them content that they want to see that is very specific to your campaign. So whether it's a newsletter, we like to send, an email from a volunteer saying, hey, here's what the campaign did this week that got us closer to winning. Here's a finance report. Here's everything that we've done on the ground in the district to move our campaign forward. So providing value to these donors. And it's also important to keep in mind that 10% of people are going to open, or 10 to 20, whatever your average rate is, which means most people aren't going to read it and they're just going to keep going by. And that's okay. So that's where you get a lot of volume of people who maybe send more than once a week, is because if you have a list of 100,000 people and only 10% are donating, you want to make sure that you're getting in their inbox. But the biggest thing is providing value. So I don't have a percentage on exactly how many people complain, but if you opt out, like, we try to honor that to the best of our ability. And we definitely do it on the house file end, and we encourage all of our campaigns to, because it costs me money to send texts and emails, and I don't want to be spending that money to send to people who don't want to hear from our campaign. So we encourage people to honor the opt-outs, be very judicious. We really only send to people who have a history of giving, or a history of opening, or a history of interacting with our content. We don't love to, if you're not going to open my emails for more than a year, I'm not going to send them to you. So that's something that we have tried to communicate to our campaigns, because it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and it's not a great donor experience. So while, yes, asking someone in person for money every 2 years is a little bit different, that's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of running, I guess. Like, you have the ability to kind of filter that stuff out on the digital side of things, and to try and be a little more conscientious about how you reach out to people. So there's a couple of ways that you do that. Like I said, suppressing major donors. If you have people that have maxed out, make sure you take their email off the list. Stop sending to them. If they opt out, honor the opt out, and really only send to people who open emails or have a history of donating. That way you're not blowing people up who have no interest in giving, and you're not wasting money sending to them. So those would be a couple of ways I think that we all can be better about honoring that.
Yeah, and I think legally, if they opt out, I think you really need to keep them opt out. You shouldn't allow them back in. Taylor, again, I want to thank you for joining us today. This was very informative. I'm getting a lot of people saying thank you. So again, reach out to me, Buzz360, Lisa Schneegans, if you need any information, or if you didn't write down Taylor's message or email, reach me and I can put you in touch. Thanks, and thanks everybody for sharing. Have a nice day, and let's make 24 a great election year. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to
Thank
see you.
you.
Bye-bye.